Okay, let's get started. So it's just past 11 here on the West Coast. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We are here to talk about Gladly's 2020 Customer Expectations Report. Just by way of logistics and housekeeping, wanted to kind of share with you a little bit about what we're going to do today. And if you have questions or you want to interact and engage with the online chat capability, we do have the ability to do that. So you should see as part of the Zoom meeting, either the ability to chat with the panelists or with everybody who's involved in today's discussion, or if you want to submit a question in the Q&A section, you can do that as well. We're going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes or so. I don't think we have much more time than that to go over this unless there's lots of questions, which I certainly encourage you to ask. But let me just go ahead and start by just doing a quick introduction. My name is Mike McCarron. I've been with Gladly for the better part of 4 years. And interestingly enough, this is the 4th year that we've done this customer expectations survey, and the insights and the data and the takeaways that we've been able to gather over the course of the last couple of years has been very interesting. So for anybody who has looked at or has downloaded or has reviewed the report in the past, you'll know that it's just full of lots of really interesting data, lots of interesting metrics around how consumers are thinking about service and about the expectations that they bring to the overall service experience that they have with brands. The demographics of the folks that we surveyed, roughly about 1,500 people, mixed between male and female, about evenly split. And we have a pretty broad range of age demographics, all the way back to baby boomers, Gen Y, Gen Z, and then millennials and what have you. So we've got a sort of a good cross section of participants. And so the data and the insights that we're sharing are not just about sort of one age demographic or one consumer buying demographic. It's essentially across the board with a number of different consumers in the market. We're going to go through and talk about essentially 3 main themes for the day, right? The themes are around that consumers want to be known and want to feel known by the brands that they do business with. Secondly, consumers expect sort of one lifelong conversation that they have with that brand, and that is especially true when they switch channels, whether it be a voice call or an email or a web chat session or what have you. And then I think, last but not least, I think this is something that many consumers feel very much that they want to be working with and they want to be interacting with agents or customer care representatives that are empowered to solve problems. So for folks who have questions throughout the session, feel free to raise those questions either in the chat or in the Q&A section. And additionally, if anybody wants to go and get the full report from Gladly, it's on our website. You can get it. It's pretty much highlighted there, as well as we've posted it into the chat dialogue for folks who want to follow along. There's a link there that we've actually posted as well. So let's just jump right in and get started. So trend 1, so the 3 trends we're going to go through, there's 3 today. The first trend is that consumers want to be known, right? And what that means is they want to feel known and understood by the brands that they do business with. And so one of the big questions that we asked as part of the survey was, what's more important when engaging with a brand? Is personalized service or is personalized marketing more valuable or more important to the consumer? And overwhelmingly, almost 80% of the respondents said that they value personalized service far more so than they value personalized marketing. Obviously, getting a personalized marketing or getting targeted marketing sort of delivered is valuable, but when compared to that personalized service experience, most consumers believe that they want to make sure that when they engage that brand, that the person they're talking to, whether it's a live phone call or it's a chat or it's an email, that they are known and understood. And what does that mean? What does it mean to sort of be known and understood? So we asked again, what do consumers expect brands to know about them as part of that service experience that they have. And first off, nearly 2/3 of, this is pretty obvious number here, but nearly 2/3 of the respondents said that they want to be known. They want their name to be known, where they're located. So it's just some general information about who is this customer and what do I know about that particular customer, in allowing me as an agent to deliver great personalized service to that customer. Second, over 50% of the respondents want the agents that they're engaged with, or the customer care representatives that they're engaged with, to know about and to have access to the prior or previous conversations that particular customer has had with the brand. So they're not having to repeat and retell their story. They're not having to sort of tell the agent about sort of the problem that occurred last week or last month. They want those previous conversations to be known and available and to be accessible to the agents. And then third, again, just over half of the population expected the agents that they engage with to have some visibility and understanding of the purchase history or the subscription history that customer has with that brand. So items that they've purchased, even items that they may have returned, what's their buying behavior, what products do they buy, is it full price items, is it on sale items, like what is the history of the buying behavior, so that the agents, again, can deliver that personalized service experience to that customer. So customers want that information to be known, and yet that information is oftentimes less than available, or less available to the agents than it should be, which then results in a very impersonal experience, or in many ways, the agent's experience is very inefficient trying to chase down or track down the relevant information to allow them to deliver a service that shows that customer that they know them and value their business. So again, a lot of customers, we ask this question as well. Another big question that we typically ask is, when you engage with a brand, how often when you do that, do you feel like you're not treated as an individual person, but you're treated more like a ticket or a case? And in this case, 64% of the population that we asked still feels like, because of that lack of personalization, they don't feel like they're a consumer or a person. They feel like they're a ticket or a case. As a result of that, obviously only 36% on the counter side of that, only 36% feel like they're treated as individuals as part of that customer service experience, which clearly leaves a lot of room for growth and opportunity for companies and brands to do better and to improve on their ability to deliver highly personalized service experiences to their customers. So again, the idea as a takeaway is, we want to say goodbye to tickets. We want to say goodbye to the legacy way. And in fact, consumers don't want to be treated as tickets, but we want to sort of move away from that legacy ticket and case-based model and move much more towards a radically personalized service experience. And that can only happen if the agents and the team of resources that are working with that customer have insight and know that customer, and they can actually deliver that personalized experience by knowing who that customer is. So that's trend number one, right? Again, we want to really focus on making sure that consumers feel known and valued by the brands that they do business with. The second trend is that, again, sort of leading into sort of one of the comments made earlier, consumers expect one lifelong conversation to happen between themselves and the brands that they do business with. And I think that in today's sort of modern consumer world, customers have access to voice and email and web chat and in-app chat and SMS and all the social media channels like Twitter, direct message, and Facebook and WhatsApp. They have all these channels really essentially at their disposal on their mobile devices, and they can use any and all of those channels whenever it's convenient for them to do so. So the idea here is that as consumers move from one channel to the other, they expect the agents that are working with them to be able to see and have visibility into that lifelong conversation. The challenge is that many of the customer service platforms, or even many of the infrastructure that customer service teams are using fragment that voice and email and chat experience across different platforms or across different silos. And as a result, it creates a very difficult situation for the agent to piece that all together. So again, best experiences that customers have had with brands, 71%, talk about the fact that the issues are resolved quickly. Being able to resolve issues quickly essentially comes back to knowing the full history of that communication. 51% expect it to be one conversation with the brand, and they don't want to have to repeat their story. I think everybody who has ever engaged with a customer service team may have gotten on the phone. They had to sort of call back later that day. Maybe they got disconnected, or they moved from one channel to another, and they have to sort of get the new agent that they're talking to up to speed on what was discussed during the prior interaction. And frankly, that's just a poor user experience for the customer, and it doesn't necessarily make them feel like they're known as a customer. 57% feel listened to and heard. Again, there's, it's okay, but there's certainly lots of room for growth there. Being able to actually have brands acknowledge who the customer is, acknowledge the history of the communication, acknowledge the fact that they can see a prior interaction, a prior conversation that happened, whether that was a positive experience or not so positive. All of that stuff is quite valuable. And then what's interesting is that, only 36% value the fact that they can use the channel of their choice. Obviously, by providing consumers the ability to use any channel that they want, that is actually quite valuable, but not at the expense of if the fragmented experience on the back end that the agent is dealing with causes that customer to have to repeat and retell their story, right? So we actually have talked about this quite a bit inside of Gladly, as well as with many of our customers. The idea that you can deliver omni-channel service across all those channels doesn't necessarily mean you're delivering a great customer experience if all of those channels are fragmented on the back end. So omni-channel is great, but not if it comes at the expense of the fragmentation of that channel across all the different platforms and systems behind the scenes. So again, thinking about the lifelong conversation, thinking about sort of the data and the metrics that we've looked at, this is a great stat, great metric. 86% of the customers that we asked as part of this survey expect that if they have a conversation with an agent and they move from one channel to the other, which of course you can see in this chart here that they do, they expect the agents to understand and to be able to move from channel to channel with them as they migrate from those channels. So the idea that a phone call initiates the interaction or the conversation, which then moves to an SMS dialogue, which then moves to a web chat, or then moves to an email exchange, 86% of the population expects that the agents are able to move as seamlessly as the customer does across those channels. And you'll notice that this data shows that there are lots of different channels that consumers are using to engage in customer service. Interestingly enough, what has been traditionally the most common and the most popular form of customer service channel, phone calls, still represents a pretty high percentage. 63% still use phone calls. 41% are leveraging and using email on a regular basis. 27%, you can see the numbers here. So, again, all these numbers add up to well over 100%. So as a result, what you're seeing is that consumers are using these channels, and they're using multiple channels to engage in service with a brand. And all of this shows that when consumers move from one channel to the other, they expect that the agents they're engaged with are being able to follow along and see the history and the communication that's actually happening. And they even expect the agent to be able to switch those channels as well. This is also an interesting data point, which is the emerging patterns of what are some of the more sort of like the younger demographics in our study. So this is sort of a one slide that kind of talks about some of the millennial sort of Gen Z sort of age sort of demographics, where they are actually starting to increase their overall volume of all the traffic. Like their increase in terms of phone calls and emails and chats and texts. So what we're finding is that the newer generation of consumers are not necessarily only moving to digital channels. They're doing that in large numbers, but they're actually leveraging all of the channels across the board. So they're increasing the amount of times they interact and engage with a brand. And so the idea that if you think about moving all of your communication to digital or self-service, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can sort of move away from the traditional channels like phone calls and email and web chat, because the consumers today are using all channels, and they're actually using multiple channels as part of each interaction that they have with the brand. So this is an interesting thing. So again, I think a lot of people have thought, and I think, anybody who sort of talks to some of the younger generation, do they want to sit on a phone call, or do they want to use email? The actual data indicates that they actually do, if that's the appropriate channel for them to use to resolve the issue that they're actually looking to get help with. Okay, third trend. Third trend is all about the fact that consumers value when they start to talk to and engage an empowered agent to solve their problem. Consumers really value that. They value that more than even speed of answer. They value that more than a number of other attributes or factors in terms of the customer service experience. What they want to know is that when they talk to an agent, whether it's live on a phone call or in a web chat, that they know they're talking to someone who's empowered to solve their problem. And that results in a lot of great sort of downstream benefits to the brand, right? So when you resolve and work with somebody who can solve your problems, great experiences, when you have a great customer service experience, this metric is just very, very powerful in that 84% of the respondents in the survey that we had said that they would go out of their way to spend more money with a brand that provides great experiences to them. And, which means that if they were sort of given the opportunity to save money for the same product or the same service from another brand, but they didn't think they were going to get the same level of service from that brand, they would actually spend more money with the brand that's actually delivering better service. And that, I think, is an incredibly powerful number, because it shows that good customer service pays off in the end by driving loyalty and repeat business. And that loyalty and repeat business can even come at higher prices, right? So like the idea that consumers are valuing price above all, I don't think that necessarily applies, and that what they value is great experiences with brands, which then allows them to sort of drive repeat purchases, and they can hold on to some of the pricing that they have on those products and services as well. Again, so if you think about sort of, again, like the consumer's expectations around 71% of our population that we talked to valued the engagement of an empowered problem solver, right? So like thinking about how do you ensure that you're going to deliver great service. You can have great product experts. You can have someone who's a patient listener. You can have someone who feels like they're a close friend, if you will. But the people who are most valued by consumers when engaging in customer service are the folks that are empowered problem solvers. And I think that we've talked to a number of our customers who actually put in place programs to ensure that the agents on the front line are empowered to solve problems. They have essentially guardrails, or they have sort of guidelines, if you will, where if the customer is asking for something, that they know that they're empowered and they're actually supported in making decisions in real time to resolve issues very quickly. So that is something that I think is really valuable, and that when we look at the best customer service teams that we engage with, we look at the best agents and the most empowered agents, what they have are clear guidelines around what is acceptable for them to do, from a refund, a cancellation, a concession on an order, or whatever the actual issue is, by empowering them to have some level of boundaries or guidelines around what they can do. It just allows for the issue to be resolved quickly, and it gives that customer a great personalized experience. Obviously, on the flip side of that, if you don't provide a great service, sort of the one and done, I think this metric has been sort of like validated in many, many different studies out there. But the ability for, if a customer service team or if a customer doesn't feel like they got a great service experience from a brand, nearly half of them will stop working with that brand after just one bad customer service experience. And so, to counter the personalized experience, the personalized sort of valued, feeling known, that drives incredible loyalty, it drives incredible sort of repeat purchases. But if it's a negative experience, then it's very difficult to retain that customer as a loyal customer, because they're going to move on to the next brand that's going to allow them to do that. So again, nearly 50% are one and done. They move on from the brand after just one bad experience. And obviously, as we all know, it's very difficult to acquire customers and to build that loyalty, and to see them move on after just one bad experience is a pretty sort of daunting, sort of overwhelming number to think about. Service and every single interaction you have matters with the customers that you're engaging with. So again, one other thing around that personalized experience and making sure that brands and customer service and customer care teams, when a customer has a great experience with a brand, 77% of them are going to make recommendations to their friends and family that are positive experiences, and they're going to sort of share their experiences and share how great of an experience it was, which then sort of creates that virtuous cycle of loyalty and repeat business and expanding the customer base and all that. So again, delivering personalization and driving that experience allows for your loyal customers to become brand advocates for your brand, to tell others and have them become part of that family as well. Also, nearly 52%, or nearly 50% rather, are also making recommendations on social media or review sites based on positive personalized experiences that they have. Okay, so getting towards the sort of the tail end of some of the prepared sort of data here, obviously goes without saying, radically personal customer service, which is what Gladly strives to deliver and strives to help our customers deliver in the market, is just a sure way of ensuring that you're delivering great experiences, driving loyalty, bringing happiness and joy to customers. And when you think about the opposite of personalized service, if it's ticket-based, or it's very impersonal, or it's very transactional, it's very difficult to deliver that level of experience that consumers expect and want from a brand. And it's very important to ensure that you're delivering that level of experience to your customers, such that they want to come back, they want to spend more money, they want to tell their friends and family about that experience as well. So the TLDR, 3 main metrics, 3 main data points that I think are super valuable. Again, started out by talking about 78% of respondents say that the personalized service experience is far more important to them than personalized marketing. So again, we've actually done a couple of sessions on this in the past, where customer service is quote unquote the new marketing, because you can deliver that level of service to customers. I think in today's day, with all the disruption happening with COVID and everything else, the ability for customer service agents to build that personalized relationship with consumers, it may actually be the only human interaction that a consumer has with a brand, and to be able to deliver that personalized service is more important than ever. Second, 86% of the population expects that when they move from channel to channel, the agents and the customer care team members behind the scenes that are working with them are able to move between those channels, and to understand and to know that this customer has moved from one channel to another, but the issue is still the same, and they're just looking for help over a different channel. And then third, 84% of the population, again, good service is good for business. 84% are going out of their way to spend more money with brands that deliver great experiences to their customers. And that, I think, just shows that the investment that people are making and the ability to justify further investments in personalized customer service and customer care programs and initiatives is great for the top line as well as the bottom line, because it drives loyalty and it drives repeat and future business with your loyal customers. Okay, with that, time for questions and answers. I'm going to go ahead and look and see if there's any questions that have come in, but feel free to ask questions as they come in. Would be happy to answer those for you along the way. One of the questions that did come in is, as I've alluded to this a little bit earlier, one of the questions is, or can you explain a little bit more about how you can empower the agents to be independent problem solvers within the teams? And again, as I mentioned earlier, many of the companies that we work with have established programs where they allow for the agents to have essentially some guidelines and some boundaries around what they can and what they cannot offer to customers in the form of returns or refunds or things like that. What we found was that managers and supervisors, when customers made reasonable asks and reasonable requests of customer service agents, that most managers and supervisors were essentially sort of approving or granting sort of that request, 85, 90, even 95% of the time. And as a result of that, rather than create friction or create a delay in the ask being made by the customer and being able to get approval from the supervisors and the managers, essentially what they're doing is they're empowering the frontline agents to sort of take action within a certain range. And anybody who sort of falls within that range, they're empowering them to do that, right? That obviously sort of speeds things up. It gives that customer a better experience. It certainly reinforces that model, that mode of the agent feeling empowered, the customer recognizing that they're engaging with an empowered agent and they can resolve that issue very, very quickly. I think another aspect of that is, in many ways, agents sometimes feel a little bit apprehensive, or they may be a little bit sort of nervous about sort of offering those refunds or offering those credits without getting that approval. And one of the things that many of our customers have done is that they want to celebrate and they want to promote the fact that when an agent does take that action, or is that they resolve that customer's issue by using the guidelines and sort of falling within those guidelines, that they actually want to celebrate that and they actually want to share that with the rest of the team, because then it encourages everybody else to do very similar actions. So in many ways, we've actually had customers tell us that they empower the agents, but agents don't take advantage of that empowerment. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to show that they actually mean, when they actually say, like, let's empower the agents to do this, they want to celebrate those successes to be able to do that. Okay. Another question that came in was around how do you balance, or how do you look at delivering quick, sort of efficient, effective service where you're resolving quick issues quickly versus the more higher touch personalized experience that might take more time. It may be more costly to the organization because you're spending more time on the phone or in the chat or what have you. How do you balance those two out? And I think obviously that's a great question. Each brand, each company that we work with has to think about that a little bit differently. Obviously, in some places where if you're sort of handling quick one-off questions, or you're handling very basic sort of routine things that come in, one of the things that we oftentimes work on with our customers is driving more of that self-service experience, so you can promote self-service knowledge answers as part of Gladly's Answers, part of the Sidekick, which is our self-service chat experience online. Being able to actually promote self-service experiences allows for some of those quick questions and those quick interactions to be taken without actually ever even having an agent engage with that customer. Then what that does is it leaves capacity, it leaves resources, and it leaves the staff members ready and available to handle more of the in-depth, more complex questions and problems. Or maybe it's an online purchase that's high dollar value, could be a vacation booking or a package, which requires a lot of sort of like specific details to be handled. You don't want to necessarily try to drive those kinds of interactions in automation or self-service or AI experiences. You also want to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to ensure that customer gets a great experience, especially if there's high dollar value on that interaction as well. So I think the balancing has to be, obviously you have to listen to and sort of like gauge the customer's interest in terms of, is this a long conversation where they're looking for guidance, or they're looking for help or assistance on making a decision, or is it just simply a quick action or a quick response that the customer is looking for? Obviously gauging that customer's interest level in terms of the level of detail they want to go into is an important part of it, but also I think is empowering customers to self-solve and to self-serve by putting out as much knowledge and content out on the web, whether it be an FAQ or a help site or the Sidekick self-service answers. All of those things are quite valuable as well. Okay, last question. And then again, I want to sort of make it so that if anybody else has any further questions, feel free to add those into either the chat or into the Q&A. Is you talk a lot about multi-channel, you talk about a lot about sort of like agents moving from channel to channel, and you also talk about sort of consumers moving from that. How do you staff a team? How do you staff a resource of customer service agents when you have this multi-channel or this omni-channel experience in mind? And I think there's two paths. We have one path is agents become generalists across all channels, but they're specialists with regards to the issues or the work that they're being asked to do, right? So for example, you might have a team of resources that are specialized in dealing with support or service related issues, another team that might be focused more on sales, new bookings, or new reservations, if you will. Another team might be focused on, if you have membership or loyalty, or you have some kind of sort of design services, if you will, that offers a little bit of higher touch experiences there. What you can do there is you can say that what you're doing is saying each of these agents or each of these teams can handle all channels. They can handle voice and email and chat and messaging, but what you're doing is you're routing to them those customers that are looking for assistance and help in their specialized skill sets that they have. That way, regardless of the channel that the customer reaches out to engage, you can actually have it go to a team of people that are specialized or are skilled in the kinds of questions that those customers are generally asking for. So that can be across the board. The other path, which we still see, and this is actually something that actually comes into play, I think, with larger customer service teams, is there still may be some separation of channels, meaning that there may be a team that focuses primarily on voice or primarily on chat or primarily on email. But when they need to, they can move and switch from channel to channel based on if the customer is chatting with them and they're not able to sort of resolve the issue over chat, could the agent simply pick up the phone and call that agent back to be able to address that? Could also be that you have a dedicated team that is primarily focused on phone calls as a channel, but even though they may be only focused on that channel with regards to customer service and care, with Gladly, they're able to see all of the email interactions, the chat interactions, and the SMS sort of conversation data, so that even though the phone call is the primary channel that that particular agent is working on, they have full visibility, they have full insight into all of the interactions that are actually happening with that customer in the conversation timeline. Great example of this is there's an example where a customer reached out to JetBlue, which is one of Gladly's customers, over web chat. They were asking a bunch of questions about changing a booking. They were looking to sort of move seats around and change the flight times and things like that. And they had this long dialogue and this interaction with that customer over chat. And then in order to sort of confirm all that and to sort of, handle and process the credit card and handle the booking, the customer had to sort of engage over the phone with the team to sort of finalize that final transaction. And the customer's like, oh, great. Now I have to sort of start my whole process all over again by sort of repeating my story to the team on the phone. And the chat agent said, no problem at all. When that phone call comes in, it's going to know who it is because we have your phone number on record. And the agent that picks up that phone call will have full visibility and full sort of access to the chat dialogue that we have. And they will know exactly what your ask is, and they will know exactly how to handle that problem. And the customer kind of said, well, I'll believe it when I see it or experience it. Sure enough, called in, agent greeted that customer by name, said, I see that you just had a chat with my colleague. Is this the final confirmation we want to go? And we're going to process that order right over the phone. So that was an experience where the customer moved from channel to channel based on some business rules and logic behind the scenes. But the idea was that the phone team and the chat team, even though they're specialized in different channels, was able to view and see the interaction happening across all of them and not make that customer repeat or retell their story. Okay, those are all of the questions that we've received thus far. If anybody would like to send follow-on questions or would like to engage further, you absolutely can do that. My email, Mike@Gladly, is very easy to remember. So if anybody wants to continue the conversation, by all means, feel free to send me questions along the way. Again, as a reminder, the report is available on our main homepage on our website. Just go to the site if you haven't downloaded it. There's a bunch more data. Obviously, we hit the highlights today. We didn't go through all of the specifics of the report. There's plenty more behind that, but did want to share a lot of the great results, a lot of the great insights that our customers shared with us as part of the survey. And again, want to thank you for your time today. And we do look forward to continuing the conversation with you in the future. Thanks.